Good day. My name is Jerry Amori. This short video is an overview of things to consider prior to entering the disclosure meeting and actions you should take once it is ended. An important aspect of disclosure is the recognition that disclosure is a process, not a one-time event. There may be several meetings with the patient or family before the process of sharing the information, working through the implications, and finally resolving the situation. At the minimum, disclosure usually involves an initial medical meeting to advise the patient and family of the unanticipated outcome. A second meeting, when more information is known about the potential outcomes of care or next steps, and perhaps a third meeting to discuss the outcomes of the investigation and the organization's readiness and/or ability to work with the family for retribution or compensation. And finally, if appropriate, a meeting involving lawyers and others to bring closure. Each of these steps are considered a potential aspect of the disclosure process. Nonetheless, probably the most challenging for you as the provider is going to be the initial medical disclosure where you take the lead role. You may also be involved in the discussion where findings of deeper investigation into the causes of the event are shared, and where it is determined that further discussion is needed about compensation, you may be involved if it is deemed appropriate by your insurer. In the subsequent discussions, usually others will take the lead. You will participate in those discussions, but are unlikely to have to take the lead discussing the findings of the root cause analysis investigations or the financial offers if they are made. You, however, will likely take the lead in the initial disclosure, the medical disclosure, which is the discussion that is key to the amount of trust and willingness the patient and their family will have to continue to work with you and to believe in you. So, how to prepare? There are 4 aspects to preparing for disclosure. First, understanding the situation. 2, having the correct information. 3, creating a conducive discussion setting. And 4, preparing yourself. Let's start with understanding the situation. When something goes wrong in the course of care, you, as the physician or other provider, may be physically present and witness the event, or you may not be. Events may unfold when you are nowhere near the facility. To make matters more complicated, perhaps you weren't even involved in what happened. You ordered the medication, but it wasn't the medication that was administered. In an outpatient setting, perhaps someone didn't document an important change in vitals, or they didn't call you when the patient had a change of status. Any number of things may have you removed from being directly involved in the event. The questions we receive frequently include things like, if the unanticipated outcome doesn't really affect the course of treatment, do we really need to tell the patient or family about it? Or, if I didn't cause the problem, should I even be involved in the disclosure? If I disclose something that I wasn't involved in, won't the patient blame me? This is very complex medically, and we may or may not have anything to do with the outcome. Won't telling the patient or family make them think we did something wrong and want to sue us? Now, while it is perfectly normal to have all kinds of thoughts about the situation or whether you should even be involved, there are 6 things to keep in mind. First, the first disclosure is a medical disclosure. It is a disclosure in which you discuss with the patient the outcome of care and how it is different from what was anticipated or expected. The best approach to this conversation is a tender-hearted, compassionate, but also factual description of the outcome. The purpose of this disclosure discussion is to give your patient the information they and their family need for any future decisions. And yes, those decisions might, under the right circumstances, involve asking for compensation. But for the time being, your goal is to provide them with the information about what has happened to their body. Second thing to keep in mind, the information might be complicated. The patient and family might misunderstand. And that is why it is important for you to talk about what you are going to say ahead of time with your risk manager or your claims person, if at all possible. They may be able to guide you in ways to say things in a simpler or more direct way. Number 3, even if you feel comfortable providing information simply, remember that under stress, people will recall only 3 to 5 facts. So before you go into the conversation, be prepared with 3 main items of information that you feel they need to know. Those 3 items tend to be what we know has happened. As an example, the patient was given an incorrect medication, or there was an unanticipated bleed, whatever. The patient's current status, what medical intervention is next, or that no intervention is needed. Remember, it is not a good idea to hide information that is known and factual. Patients have access to their records. Other physicians will see their records. If what you tell them is different from what is in the record, all trust will be destroyed. Be factual. Be simple. Be compassionate. Be brief. Understand what is really happening. In the emotional complexity immediately following the unexpected outcomes in care, there can be a plethora of different perspectives and thoughts about what caused the event or how it could have been avoided, or even potential future outcomes. During the disclosure discussion, these are to be avoided at all costs. Just gather your facts, not speculations. Do not rely on what somebody else saw unless it is documented in the record as factual. Do not speculate on why something happened. Remember, anything you say during an initial disclosure becomes permanent fact in the mind of the listener. It is okay to say, "I do not know, and I will find out." It is far better to provide less information and more compassion during the initial disclosure than more information that might be subject to change. Where you have the disclosure discussion is as important as how you have it. 4 simple things to remember. First, private and as pleasant as possible. Second, tissues and water. Third, pages and phones off. And 4th, sit. Do not stand to give bad news. Finally, whenever possible, have one person with you to help ensure you see the emotional reactions. If you are not particularly close to the patient, try to ensure the other person is someone the patient trusts. Perhaps it will be the head nurse or a nurse from the unit. Perhaps someone from spiritual support. Maybe you want someone from patient relations. I would not include the risk manager unless there is no one whom the patient trusts, and the risk manager is the only person in your organization with effective communication skills. The presence of a risk manager often alarms patients and families rather than reassures them at the point of their first serious conversation. So scout around for a nurse, a kindly administrator, or someone with whom the patient has made a connection. Include them as a secondary expression of empathy, another set of eyes and ears to help ensure you are on track with the patient's concerns, and as a witness to the conversation. Please do not skip this short section. Whatever you are feeling, you are going to carry into the conversation, and it will color how the recipient, whether it's the patient or family, receives the information. First, prepare factually. You have 3 main facts that you feel are important for immediate understanding of the situation. You know what the next steps will be. You know what is happening to the patient. You know who the patient or family will hear from next and when. And you know the name of the spiritual or social work resources available at the organization. Next, prepare emotionally. If you are angry that you are having to clean up someone else's mess or that this happened to your patient, be aware of that. If you are feeling like you made an error and that you feel guilty, be aware of that. When you walk into that room for that initial conversation, The focus must be on the needs and the emotions of the patient and the family. For that period of time, you must put aside your fear of litigation or your anger with others. The conversation must be all about what that patient or family member needs to move forward in the immediate future. It must also be about what that person or persons need to continue to trust the system and you to care about their well-being. Please do deal with your feelings with your risk manager, claims representative, attorney, or peer counselor. It is essential that you understand the force and basis of what is going on for you. You must put it aside only while you are focusing on the task at hand, communicating with someone who is receiving life-altering news. Then please, I urge you, do take care of yourself. When the meeting is over, your first impulse will be to breathe a sigh of relief, turn on your phone, and get back to work. Instead, immediately document the discussion in the patient record. If you have been working with your risk manager prior to having the discussion, it might be wise to debrief with them and then document the discussion. It is important that you record this conversation while it is still fresh in your mind. Especially when under stress, which you are, people tend to forget important details quickly. Record the information objectively. Include the important facts you provided, any significant questions asked by the patient or family, and who is going to see them next from the hospital or system. Avoid disparaging remarks about anyone in the room, anyone in the family, or on the medical team. Avoid interpreting their reactions. You can say they were upset and seemed very angry, but I would not say they were inappropriate and rude. Avoid speculations such as, I'm afraid they're going to pursue a lawsuit. There's not the place for that in the medical record. Do not say, I spoke with risk management, my attorney, my claims consultant, or anyone else. Now, while all of this may be absolutely true, these people represent services provided to you as the provider. They are not part of the patient's care and therefore do not belong in the record. Consider having the other person who was with you in the conversation either help you draft or review the entry. After all, you had them there to help you. Remember, the patient record is just that, the patient's medical record. It is not the place for disagreement, editorializing, comments, or other extraneous discussion. However, it is the place for important information about the patient and conversations with the patient and their family. Thank you for watching this video. We hope it gives you some ideas for ways to prepare for and complete the loop during those important disclosure conversations.